Title: What's the difference between the UK and the USA? Across the pond. It was an ordinary day when MIA, an ambitious writer from New York, found herself booked for a one-way flight to London. She had been offered a chance to cover an international event, and her editor saw this as an opportunity to explore her perspective on British culture versus American life. MIA, known for her keen observations and sarcastic humor, was thrilled at the idea, but also a bit apprehensive. The moment MIA stepped off the plane at Heathrow, she could already sense the difference. The accents, the signs, even the way people dressed, everything felt slightly different. As she made her way to her hotel, she couldn't help but notice how polite everyone was. No one bumped into her on the crowded sidewalk. People in the UK seemed to float through life with an air of quiet dignity, offering solace, even when no offense had been given. MIA, being from New York, was used to bustling crowds, honking cars, and a level of hurriedness that didn't allow for idle pleasantries. The first evening, MIA wandered into a local pub, eager to try what the Brits call fish and chips. She found the pub quaint, with its low wooden beams and flickering candlelight. A far cry from the sleek, modern bar she was used to in Manhattan. As she ordered her meal, the bartender, a tall man with a crisp accent, casually asked, "How's your day been, love?" MIA blinked. In New York, the only person asking her that was the barista at her local coffee shop, and that was usually because they were required to. "You know," MIA said to the bartender, "I've always thought that Americans and Brits are quite similar. We speak the same language, don't we?" The bartender smiled. "Ah, but it's the little things that set us apart, isn't it?" MIA raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Well, take the weather. Here, it's always chilly and we'll rarely admit to being cold. Back home, I imagine you lot are more likely to be freezing or burning up. It's all about the extremes, you see." MIA laughed, realizing the bartender had a point. In the States, everything was always about extremes. Extremes in weather, fashion, even personalities. It was a country that thrived on bigger is better. Big cities, big cars, and even bigger dreams. In contrast, MIA could sense the British way of life had a certain understated elegance. Even the way people spoke, like they were always keeping something hidden beneath the surface. The next day, MIA found herself at a cafe, trying to get some work done. The barista, after giving her a polite greeting, handed her the coffee with the expected cheers. MIA wasn't sure why, but she felt a sense of warmth in that single word. It wasn't rushed, nor was it overly formal. It was just right. Later that afternoon, she decided to take a walk through one of the city's oldest streets, where centuries-old buildings stood proudly alongside modern storefronts. The mixture of old and new was something MIA could never quite grasp in New York. In the States, it was all about reinvention. Torn-down buildings were replaced by new glass towers, while in the UK, history and modernity coexisted side by side, as though acknowledging each other's importance. As MIA sipped her coffee, she thought about how people in the UK valued privacy. She had noticed that, on the street, no one stared at anyone else. In New York, it was almost expected to make eye contact with strangers, engage in short exchanges, or even make small talk with the people next to you in a line. In contrast, the Brits had a way of keeping to themselves, and MIA found that refreshing in its own way. After a few days, MIA was at the local market, experiencing another cultural shift. She noticed how people in the UK were more inclined to shop at local stores, enjoying fresh, local produce rather than the fast, often impersonal nature of American supermarkets. She even had a conversation with a vendor about the importance of supporting small businesses, something she'd never heard in the massive grocery chains back home. It wasn't long before Mia's writing began to take shape. She realized that the differences between the UK and the USA weren't just in the accents or the weather. It was in the pace of life, the way people interacted with each other, and how history was honored in every corner of the UK. Meanwhile, the USA thrived on ambition, reinvention, and constantly pushing forward, leaving little room for the past. By the end of her trip, MIA had learned more than just the geographical differences between the two countries. She'd learned how their cultures shaped the very essence of their people, how their values were deeply woven into everyday life, and how, despite it all, both countries were undeniably interconnected, bound by shared language, but differentiated by the rhythms of their lives. When MIA returned to New York, she reflected on her experience, now with a clearer perspective. "We might speak the same language," she wrote in her article, "but sometimes it's the unsaid words and small details that make all the difference."